Hey Billboard, how you doing? I'm Weird Al Yankovic, and you'll be spending the entire day with me. But first, let's have lunch at Crossroads Kitchen.
We're at Crossroads in LA. This is a place you've been coming to for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite upscale vegetarian restaurant in Los Angeles. And I just remember when Impossible Burgers were a thing. There were only 3 restaurants in all of America that had Impossible Burgers, and this was one of them. And I was very, very excited to have an Impossible Burger here. And literally within 6 months, they were selling them at White Castle.
Well, it's funny to be sitting at a vegan restaurant with the king of singing about junk food.
I'm on whole wheat, all right. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried, just eat it. I love Rocky Road, so have another triple scope with me.
It's interesting that food has been such a continuous theme in your canon,
Yes,
as it were.
yes.
Is that something that along the way of songwriting you realized it was just fruitful material and it always proved to be funny, or why did you keep coming back to it as a theme?
It's just something that doesn't get covered in pop music that much. I mean, most songs
Enough, someone said.
Enough. I mean, most songs are about love and relationships and things like that. And nobody writes that many songs about tacos. So I just figured somebody had to, fill that vacuum. And I just thought of it in a business way, that if I wrote a lot of songs about food, then I could write off my grocery bill on my taxes.
Of course.
Because it's all inspiration.
Yes. Completely. Oreos,
Yeah.
bologna,
Yeah,
lasagna.
that's a write-off.
Yes, it's completely. I have to say too, having recently rewatched UHF, you eat the most disgusting looking hot dog in the world. Was that like a real everything on it? It's a very gross looking hot dog.
Yeah, that was before I turned vegetarian, so that was a real Twinkie wiener sandwich.
Oy.
So I don't know how I came up with that idea, but for the uninitiated, it's a Twinkie split lengthwise with a hot dog, preferably cooked, placed inside of it, and then with spray cheese on top.
Yeah.
And then that's a Twinkie wiener sandwich, but for the full experience, you just take the whole thing and dunk it in a glass of milk.
Yes,
Yeah.
that happens.
And I had to eat about a half a dozen of those during the filming of my movie. And I will say, it's not as bad as you think, but having said that, still not that great.
Showing up at Coachella with Yo Gabba Gabba, this is just the latest of the random places that you turn up.
Yes.
Like, I feel like I'm constantly discovering fairly new artists who are throwing you in their videos. I mean, you recently were in Clairo's Terrapin video, standing in for her, singing very dramatically. You were in the Weezer Africa video. I recently saw you doing something with the Linda Lindas. I feel like this speaks to something bigger about you and your career, which is how comfortable you are in any genre situation. And that's not what I necessarily would have expected from someone who grew up playing accordion. And I think you're really ahead of your time in kind of seeing beyond genre and kind of looking at pop music in a genreless way. Where did that mindset come from? Kind of coming up, like, what genres of music were you into?
You know, I grew up listening to rock radio, so my primary interests were pop and rock and things like that. But I was interested in all genres. Lin-Manuel Miranda has a quote about how listening to my polka medleys made him understand that songs didn't have to be in any one particular genre. You can, play with them and blend them, and songs are their own thing, and genres are kind of put upon them. I've just always liked the idea of being able to slip seamlessly, from one genre to the next, and to have my albums as sort of as random as possible. I like the jarring segues to go from a reggae song to a polka song to a Zydeco song to a hard rap song.
I was just wondering if there's like a song that comes to mind that you did where you kind of were able to prove to yourself, oh, I can do a genre that is like kind of foreign to me, kind of not what I came up listening to, and it'll be good and people won't be judgmental.
I didn't grow up like a big rap fan, but it wound up being my favorite kind of song to write because, a lot of pop songs are very repetitive. They don't give you a lot of words to work with. I was like, how can I be funny in 7 syllables? But rap songs, I mean, nothing but words.
Yeah.
And it's easy to craft jokes that way. And I found that was really the kind of song I enjoyed making the most just because I had so many options.
I'm just too white and nerdy. Think I'm just too white and nerdy. I'm just too white and nerdy.
Do you listen to rap now? Do you have rappers now that you'd be interested to maybe parody?
Well, certainly there's, always candidates and people that would be good targets for parody. When I listen just for my own personal pleasure, I tend to gravitate towards listening to the kind of bands that I, listened to in college, like my comfort food music, So I can't say that I even really listen to that much contemporary pop these days, just because I'm, it's a little off the radar for me, just because I'm not as laser focused on doing parodies right now. But I always still appreciate it, and I love hearing new music, and my daughter kind of keeps me up to date. She keeps me modernized.
There's so many comedic musicians. Is there kind of a new generation of musicians who
absolutely.
look up to you, who come to you for advice?
Absolutely. Not that come to me for advice, but people that I consider my peers and people that are doing amazing work in comedy music. I love The Lonely Island. They're good friends of mine, and I think they're brilliant. Same with Tenacious D, Flight of the Conchords. I think Bo Burnham's very funny. There's a lot of people doing great stuff in comedy music these days.
What do you do day to day, even when you're not putting out recorded music frequently, to make sure that you're keeping up with everything, both as a songwriter and as a performer?
I'm gearing up for a big tour, so mostly I'm just making sure that I don't have a heart attack on stage or pass out or something, so I'm trying to get my cardiovascular up. I'm doing long walks every night. And the set list is already done, so it's not like I need to be finding new material so much for the live show. So I'm very project-oriented, and the tour's the big project that I'm gearing towards. So. If I was doing it for an album, which I'm not, then I would be more like focused on the charts and pop radio and things like that, and really trying to figure out, put my finger back on the zeitgeist and figure out what I should be doing. But right now, I'm just more concerned with making sure I'm able to put on the best show as possible and still do 75 dates and not somewhere in the middle of it just collapse.
Since you mentioned the charts, I do have to say one way in which you've had a very unique career is, you've had songs on the Hot 100 in each decade of your career, and it's a long career at this point. So that's kind of crazy. Is that something that you've been aware of as your career has gone by?
I've always been obsessed with the Billboard charts. I was a
nice
college,
to hear. Always.
Ever since I was a college DJ, we had the Hot 100 and the Billboard charts taped on the walls of the studio, and it was something I looked at every day and just thought, oh, maybe someday, Every time I put out something, I think, oh, it would be great if this made it on the charts. But the primary thing is just to put out something that I think is good and funny that people will enjoy. But yeah, being on the charts is something I do get a big kick out of.
I was curious to what extent the songs of yours that have become hits, which aren't always based on hits, are sometimes based on kind of novelty songs themselves that your parodies have then made last longer, I think. How much the hits of yours are self-selecting in that they're songs that, the artists have given you permission to do, and therefore you get to kind of run with them, or if it had to do with you observing how things were doing on the charts and seeing something that was on the way up and looked interesting to play with?
Well, it's both. Mostly it's first I figure out what I would most like to do and what I think would have the biggest impact, and the fans would, respond to the most. And then if I can come up with a good idea for that particular song. I can't always come up with a great idea for every song. I can come up with 100 bad ideas, but I'm looking for the one good one. But if I do find that one good idea, then I will approach the artist. If I know that artist personally, I'll approach them directly, and if not, I'll have my peeps talk to their peeps and work it out. But I always get their permission and their blessing every single time, whether legally I need to or not.
And most of the time you get permission, right?
I have a pretty good track record. I'd say 97, 98% of the time, they'll say yes. And when they say no, it's a shame, but then I will just back away and not do that. My track record is a lot better since the second album came out, because after Michael Jackson, that was the big stamp of approval. Then people were like, oh, I guess you're okay.
Do you feel like pop music now, as far as what you know of it, has more of a sense of humor, less than it did in kind of your heyday? Or?
Pop music's always changing. That's what it does. That's its nature. It's hard to articulate exactly how, over the decades it's changed, but I don't think it's any more or less taking itself seriously or funny than it was in any previous decade. It just continues to evolve.
Maybe not the artists themselves, but I feel like fandoms have become such a huge part of pop music, and fandoms can be quite serious and
Sure.
have
Oh,
very
yeah.
little sense of humor about anything perceived as a slight towards,
Yes.
you know, their favorite artists. So I wonder what the environment of today would be like for a musician like you, but at the same time, you seem to get a pass for like everything because everyone loves you so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be the contrarians. I mean, I think nearly everybody understands, certainly at this point, that what I do is done in good fun and it's done from a place of admiration and homage.
Completely, yeah.
And, you know, I remember when I did Smells Like Nirvana, I would get a few letters from Nirvana bands saying, like, how could you do that? How could you do that? And I had to explain, Kurt loved it. I got his permission. He was fine with it. Why aren't you fine with it?
Sort of a different time. Like, you didn't have to be a grunge fan to know who Nirvana was. Everything seems so much more fractured now, I think, in terms of like the pop culture people consume in general and what pop music is like. I mean, do you feel like lucky in a way to have really come up as an artist at a time when like everyone was listening to Top 40 radio and it was such a thing in everyone's lives?
Oh, totally. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm not so much focused on parodies right now, is because I long for the days of the monoculture where everybody was aware of what was big on the charts.
Yeah.
And now things have gotten very fragmented. Everybody's into their own specific subgenre, and they're listening to just exactly that little niche kind of music that they're into. Which is good in a way, I guess, because, you know, it's nice for people to have choices. But for a parody artist like me, it's nice for everybody to be familiar with the same material so that I don't have to figure out, like, well, what is a hit anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Certainly there are big hits and there are superstars and all that, but it's not as overwhelming as it was, say, in the 80s when everybody watched MTV, everybody kind of like knew what the big videos were, who the big stars were, what the big hits were.
A bigger question I have about your career is how you became this performer, because being someone who does wonderful recorded music, and especially your recordings and the sort of precision and like layered approach that goes into making them, that does not equate to you being an amazing live performer too. I mean, those are two, to me, separate skill sets. When did you kind of get the actual performance bug, and how did you work on becoming someone who could really hold like a big theater and hold a stage on his own?
It's an odd career path that I've chosen because I'm not a person that really loves being the center of attention. You know, so being on stage is sort of the opposite of that. But it's something that I've done since I was a small child. I did talent shows in high school. I did the coffee house in college. And it was just something that I enjoyed. And I got more comfortable over the years. I mean, I watched old videos of myself and I could see, you know, how cringy I was, you know, when I was a teenager or when I was in college performing. And then right around 1985, I think, I could see, oh, this is when I got a little bit of confidence. You know, when I finally realized, oh, people actually like what I do and I should like, you know, maybe not be so inside my own head all the time.
But when you go into tour prep mode, besides the physical part of things, what else are you doing to get ready? Like, are you someone who rehearses a lot? How does the sort of creative ideation of like what the show is going to be?
I'm an over-preparer. I came up with a set list about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And I gave the band their marching orders. I said, here's the set list, here's your charts, here's the demos, here's what we're doing, here are the rehearsal days. I've never played Madison Square Garden before, never played the Forum in LA before. I have played Red Rocks a couple times, which is always a blast. But yeah, I mean, it feels a little ironic because it's been almost 11 years since my last studio album, and I'm playing bigger places than I've ever played in my life. So, and thankfully I still love touring. It's my favorite part about what I do. So I feel like extremely lucky to be able to do a tour like this.
I'm under the impression you're someone who is not against a lot of fan interaction. You like talking to fans. Like, do you always make time for some fan interaction stuff when you're touring?
Absolutely, absolutely. I try to avoid people at airports that are obviously, you know, trying to like sell autographs on eBay.
Yes.
But if they're actual fans, I've got all the time in the world for them because I really love and appreciate my fans, and I try to make every interaction a good one. Well, when I was a kid, you know, if I went up to a famous person and asked for their autograph, if they were dismissive or if they were rude, I remember that the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah.
Just like 10 seconds, can like determine how you feel about a person forever. So I always have on the back of my mind is like, every time you meet somebody, be the best version of yourself. If you're tired, try not to look tired. Just like really be, open and engaging and make that person feel good.
I mean, I'm wondering, this tour seems like it could be a springboard for like so much more. And it's obviously going to inspire so many more people to be listening to your music. Are there thoughts you have about what might come after it? Have you ever thought about doing a Vegas residency before?
Well, we're doing sort of a mini Vegas residency with this tour. We're starting with a week at the Venetian. So it's nothing that I would discard as an idea, but I mean, it would have to make sense.
I mean, also, I'm sure Lin-Manuel has bothered you about this too. I feel like something on Broadway could make sense at some point, just because you have such a natural sense of storytelling and song. Thoughts?
Well, I will say that's something that's been on my mind and on my bucket list for a long time. And I will say that we are in the very, very, very beginning stages of talking about a Broadway musical, like a Weird Al jukebox musical.
Oh my God!
And I don't think I can really say more than that. But I mean, you know how Broadway works. So in 10 to 20 years, hopefully it'll be in previews.
Lots of workshops. Yes.
Yeah.
We're here at the Wei Station. That doesn't stand for Weird Al Yankovic Station. This is the home studio of Dave Wei, the brilliant engineer who mixed my last album, Mandatory Fun. Let's go inside, shall we?
So we're here now at Wei Station Studio with Dave Wei and Al, who have worked together on many occasions before, but tell me a little bit about your history together and the work you've done here together.
Well, Dave is an old family friend, for one thing. Our wives go way, way back. And for the first 3 decades of my career, I worked with an engineer named Tony Papa, who was with Scotty Brothers. But it got to the point where it made more sense to work with Dave just because, for many reasons. I mean, he's one of the top engineers in the world. He's got his own home studio, and he's more of a Pro Tools guy. And Tony, God love him, he's great, but he was, sort of an analog producer. Mm-hmm. So this was sort of everything I ever wanted, and I got to work with my old friend Dave, and we've been working together since Mandatory Fun.
I mean, you've worked with such a variety of musicians. Like, what is working with Al like comparatively? I would imagine it's refreshing and different in great ways.
Well, it's always fun. The thing that impresses me the most working with Al, and I tell this to other people, is like, he is so prepared and knows exactly what we're gonna do from the minute he walks in the door.
You did Pokam Mania, which is your most recent big single release here.
Guy like it really rough, guy just can't get enough, guy just always so pumped, guy.
I would love for you to take us through, I guess, a couple songs. We're going to talk about Pokam Mania first. Recording a polka of yours seems like a very unique puzzle to put together, I guess. It seems like, because the recording itself seems to me like it must have to be a big one-take thing, and it's like a train that takes off and you go to the finish. So what is that process like, since it's so specific?
It's, it is sort of like recording 12 songs all at once. I guess in the old days we didn't do it this way, but for the last few polka medleys, we do it to track, meaning there's a tempo map, which I create in the demo, and that's the same tempo map that we use for the actual recording. So thankfully my band is very talented, and they can follow this wildly, jarring segues and different tempo changes, and we try to stick to that. And we recorded the rhythm tracks in this room, and then all the horns are overdubs. And it's a party. It's fun.
It is, and it goes by fast. I mean, it's chock full. Like, Al is so prepared. Like that, just that tempo map that he mentioned. Is like, is a you can see it on the screen here. There are so many little minute changes going all through. How long is it? 5 minutes or something?
Like 4 on this one.
4, yeah. And it's very particular, and the band just kills it. And then we just start stacking stuff on top of it. A lot of vocals and a lot of percussion, percussion.
Yeah,
that takes a lot of time to find out which is the best duck horn or whatever.
Which dog toy makes the best sound.
Yeah, I was gonna say you use unique percussion, I would think, compared to other musicians. Yeah, were there any particularly funny percussion noises used on this?
Do you want to listen to some
Yeah,
of it?
we could listen to some.
Yeah.
See what kind of
let's
crazy
see.
stuff you got
I
going
don't
on.
remember, but-
We always do like a party section where we're pretending like we're having an uproarious party and we have to be like, woohoo, hey, oh.
Yeah. Oh, let's see. What do we got? So we had like 3 slide whistles that we auditioned. I can see 4 actually, right? And there's only one that made it. This is the one that made it. Oh,
You can't beat
do you,
that.
do you remember where this is? You know where it's
Oh,
at.
I do,
This
I
is-
do.
And this is right at the Uptown Funk.
Yeah. Yeah. Right in tune too.
Yeah. But then there were, rejected whistles.
Well, that's horrible. I would never use
played
that
that?
slide whistle. That's terrible.
We're also going to talk about the favorite song of an editor and a devotee of grammar, word crimes. For this song in particular, a parody of Blurred Lines, that was a song with like a lot of controversy around it pretty immediately. At what points in all of that did you come in saying, I'm going to do a parody? How did you get permission from Robin Thicke? How did that all go?
I came up with a parody kind of a long time after it was a hit because I think when Mandatory Fun got released, Blurred Lines was already a year old, and I thought, this has been around for so long, but it was such a huge hit. It feels like its omission would be very much noticed if I didn't do it. And again, this is after it had been around and there'd been 1,000 parodies on YouTube, and most of the parodies were centered around how the original lyrics were kind of misogynistic, a little rapey,
Yes, that's
and
fair.
I thought I can't go in that direction. Certainly, I got to do an angle that nobody else has done. I thought, well, nobody else has made a parody of this about grammar, and that was something that was near and dear to my heart. So I went that direction. So even though it wasn't the most recent parody on the album, it actually wound up being the biggest charting one. It hit the top 40 right out of the box, which was a big surprise to me.
Should we listen to like a little bit of it?
Sure, yeah. Let's see. A lot of party tracks.
If you can't write in the proper way, if you don't know how to conjugate, maybe you flunked that class, and maybe now you find that people mock you on the class.
All the vocal tracks are me, right? How many do we have? We have a bunch of vocal tracks.
There's a lot. Let's see.
Gonna familiarize you
That's
with
the main vocal.
nomenclature.
Meow.
You got all
Is that an actual cat or you? Meow.
Let's see.
Good time to learn some grammar. What? Now did I stammer? Work on that grammar. You should know when it's less or it's fewer.
Perfect.
Like people who were never raised in a sewer. I hate these word crimes.
See, this is one of those songs that's going to sound better on the new tour because there's so many more people to be able to sing.
Yeah.
There's so many vocal lines, we never could really hit them all live.
Yeah.
Say you got an IT followed by apostrophe. Yes, now what does that
I love all the little ad libs, just little. What? Huh?
Or your name is Prince.
But even just like getting the cowbell and the right tuning of it,
Sure,
and,
sure.
all that kind of those little details.
Yeah.
They're so on top of it.
I mean, this makes so clear like what a real puzzle it is to put together each of these songs.
You're basically deconstructing it because, like, how do you
Exactly.
get that guitar sound? How do you get that drum sound? Like,
Yeah.
it's like kind of forensic.
Yeah.
Backwards engineering
Yeah.
for me.
So you were like just another Weird Al fan, like coming into this.
Yeah,
relationship.
and it's so funny when you tell people who you're working with, and more than anybody else I've ever worked with, Al gets the most. No way, really? Oh,
Yes,
wow,
I'm sure.
Can I come by? Can I pick up a microphone that day when you're recording or something? Yeah, it's crazy. The violent reactions you get from they just want to crawl over you. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
deal.
he's a mythological figure almost to a lot of people.
I'm a unicorn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Purely as a fan of his, like, what did you always love so much about him as an artist?
Oh, the fact that he does something that nobody else does. I mean, and nobody's ever done it in all these years.
In quite the same
decades.
way, I
Yeah,
think,
no,
yeah.
I mean, I think people don't appreciate A, how hard it is, B, how clever and actually, well produced and put together everything is. But I think people tend to dismiss comedy things as easy, that they're a joke. Like, we don't take it seriously, but we take it seriously.
Yeah.
So it's comedy's serious business.
Just want to talk to you a little bit about your everyday life, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Your life in LA.
Sure.
I mean, you're a California guy, your whole life.
You can tell by the tan. I've been working on this for a very long time.
Yes, or I guess how you take care of your skin. I mean, did you ever consider going anywhere else, or why does the LA area feel like home to you?
I grew up in greater Los Angeles, and most of my friends are here, and LA's a big town. It's got pretty much everything I ever wanted. And, I enjoy myself wherever I go in this world, but it's always just kind of been my home.
Is doing something creative part of every day for you? Or what is just regular Al on a day-to-day basis? What is a day like?
I'd say more like eating would be a day-to-day thing. I mean, being creative, that's a bonus. I like to think that, as a human, we're all creative in our own way every day, but it's not like I write 10 songs before I have breakfast in the morning.
Yeah. This seems perfectly normal.
Yeah.
So it's not like you carve out a part of every day for writing.
No,
or anything.
I'm not on the clock. You never know when inspiration is going to strike. Most of my best ideas happen when I'm very, very tired, late at night, between 1 and 4 in the morning, which is why I always used to have a little notebook by my bed, because you think, I'll remember that in the morning, and you never do. So you have to scribble it down.
Was there a portion of your career that you felt like a bit of an outsider to LA entertainment culture? And I feel like you are kind of an insider now. You're friends with a lot of these people quite organically.
Yeah, I always kind of treasured my status as an outsider, because when I first started out, I was just this annoying geek from LA who was making these silly records and poking fun at the rock superstars. After a couple years and a couple albums, I found myself going to the same award shows, some of the same Hollywood parties and things like that, and rubbing elbows with these people that I was making fun of. I don't think it was awkward, but it was just a whole different kind of dynamic. So I've always been respectful, thankfully. if I was really going at these people, it might be a little different. But thankfully, these artists actually took it as an homage and got the joke and had a great sense of humor about it. So I never really got any serious pushback.
I wonder if you what you think of internet comedy culture now, because you came up in a time of Mad Magazine and after that MTV, but do you feel grateful in terms of your development as a creative person that you came up at that time and not at the time of everything being super saturated on the internet? Or do you find certain things inspiring now? It's
all inspiring now, but I do feel like I got an advantage to come up when I did, because in the early 80s, there wasn't a YouTube. And thankfully, I got a record deal, and I got into rotation on MTV. So I kind of had the market to myself in a way, because now it's a great thing that the playing field has been leveled. Anybody, literally anywhere in the world, can upload their material to YouTube or various other services like that, various portals. And if your stuff is good, chances are people will eventually see it. If I was coming up now, I would be competing with the entire world.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I still do okay, but it would just be more of a challenge, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I feel it's a time when it's everything is up for being, poking fun at, but I don't think that necessarily means that there's no point to something that's a little more considered and takes a little more time and thought, as your stuff does.
Yeah.
I think that quality still stands out, and if it doesn't respond to something immediately, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and there's nothing negative really about satirists or parody artists that want to go for the jugular. I can understand that's funny as well. That's just not the kind of humor that I personally want to kind of put out into the world.
Are there topics or things that you've wanted to do in music that have feel more off limits now in a kind of different political environment we have now than in the 80s or 90s? Or do you still feel kind of anything and anyone is fair game?
I certainly put limits on myself. I honestly don't want to do something that's going to offend people or be hurtful to people. And there are things that I did early in my career which I didn't think were hurtful at the time, but with the passage of time, some of those things have become slurs or become politically incorrect. And I understand that. I like to think that maybe my older material has been grandfathered in. People go, oh, that's a product of its time.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that I would do right now. And I'm not one of these comedians that laments the old days when you could say whatever you wanted, because I think cancel culture is here for a reason, if it exists at all. I mean, but I like to think of it as just being respectful of people and not trying to do damage to people. Well, thanks for hanging out with me today. Gotta go though, so keep in touch. Don't be a stranger. Goodbye! Goodbye! Goodbye!